Question 1. The evaluation methodology shows a critical review of IBM CognosBI data security and access control configurations. Which approach best demonstrates adherence to professional best practices and potential regulatory compliance in assessing these configurations? Option A. Prioritizing a review of the most recently implemented security features and access controls, assuming they represent the latest advancements in best practice. Option B. Focusing on the speed and simplicity of reconfiguring access controls to meet immediate user requests without extensive verification of underlying security implications. Option C. Evaluating the system's performance metrics related to data retrieval, assuming that efficient access inherently implies secure access. Option D. Conducting a thorough audit of existing security policies, access logs, and user permissions against documented IBM Cognos BI best practices and relevant data protection guidelines. The correct answer is A. Prioritizing a review of the most recently implemented security features and access controls, assuming they represent the latest advancements in best practice. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient data governance and reporting with the potential for misinterpretation or misuse of sensitive information. The IBM CognosBI professional must exercise careful judgment to ensure that the chosen methodology for evaluating best practices in data security and access controls aligns with established industry standards and regulatory expectations, without compromising the integrity or confidentiality of the data. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive review of existing security policies, access logs, and audit trails against the documented requirements of the IBM Cognos BI professional certification. This aligns with the principle of due diligence in ensuring that the implemented controls are not only technically sound, but also demonstrably compliant with the spirit and letter of any relevant data protection regulations, assuming a jurisdiction where such regulations are applicable and would be tested in a professional certification context. It emphasizes a proactive and evidence-based assessment, which is crucial for maintaining trust and accountability in data management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived ease of implementation without verifying actual effectiveness or compliance with security best practices is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to vulnerabilities that expose sensitive data, violating principles of data confidentiality and integrity. Such an approach might also contravene regulatory requirements for data security and access management, leading to potential legal repercussions and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that neglects to consider the auditability of access controls fails to meet professional standards. Without clear audit trails, it becomes impossible to investigate security incidents or demonstrate compliance, which is a fundamental requirement for responsible data stewardship. This oversight can lead to a lack of accountability and hinder the ability to respond effectively to breaches. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the scope and objectives of the evaluation. This involves clearly defining what constitutes best practice within the context of the IBM Cognos BI professional role and any applicable regulatory environment. The next step is to gather evidence through a systematic review of documentation, system configurations, and operational procedures. This evidence should then be objectively assessed against the defined best practices and regulatory requirements. Finally, professionals must document their findings and recommendations clearly, justifying their conclusions based on the evidence and professional judgment, ensuring that any proposed improvements are practical, effective, and compliant. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates concerns regarding the potential for data inconsistencies and performance degradation in the new IBM Cognos BI solution, particularly during peak usage periods. As the project lead, which of the following approaches best addresses these concerns within the project's risk management framework? Option A. Document the identified concerns as risks and assign specific team members to develop and implement detailed mitigation plans for each, integrating these plans into the overall project schedule and resource allocation. Option B. Assign a single individual to monitor the performance and data consistency of the IBM Cognos BI solution after deployment and report any issues that arise. Option C. Create a comprehensive risk register detailing all stakeholder concerns, but defer the development of specific mitigation strategies until after the initial deployment of the IBM CognosBI solution. Option D. Acknowledge the stakeholder concerns in project documentation, but focus primary efforts on meeting the immediate feature delivery deadline requested by key business units. The correct answer is A. Document the identified concerns as risks and assign specific team members to develop and implement detailed mitigation plans for each, integrating these plans into the overall project schedule and resource allocation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for robust risk assessment with the practical constraints of project timelines and resource availability. Stakeholders, while providing valuable feedback, may not fully grasp the intricacies of a comprehensive risk assessment process or its downstream impact on project success. The challenge lies in translating their feedback into actionable risk mitigation strategies without derailing the project or compromising its integrity. Careful judgment is required to prioritize risks, allocate resources effectively, and communicate the rationale behind decisions to stakeholders. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risks by integrating them into the project plan and assigning ownership for mitigation. This proactive stance ensures that potential issues are not overlooked and that accountability is established. It aligns with the principles of good project management and risk governance, which emphasize continuous monitoring and control. By embedding risk mitigation into the project lifecycle, it demonstrates a commitment to delivering a stable and reliable IBM CognosBI solution, thereby meeting stakeholder expectations for quality and minimizing potential disruptions. This approach also implicitly adheres to the spirit of regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence and risk management in IT projects, ensuring that potential impacts on business operations are considered. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach fails to establish clear ownership for risk mitigation. This creates ambiguity and increases the likelihood that identified risks will not be addressed, leading to potential project failures or operational issues. Ethically, it represents a failure to ensure accountability, which is crucial for maintaining trust and delivering on project commitments. From a regulatory perspective, it could be seen as a lack of due diligence in managing potential project threats. Another incorrect approach focuses solely on documenting risks without developing concrete mitigation plans or assigning responsibilities. This approach is superficial and does not translate risk identification into tangible actions. It creates a false sense of security by acknowledging risks but failing to address them, which is professionally irresponsible and could lead to significant problems down the line. This approach neglects the core purpose of risk assessment, which is to proactively manage and reduce potential negative impacts. A third incorrect approach prioritizes immediate stakeholder requests over addressing identified risks. While stakeholder satisfaction is important, neglecting critical risks can lead to more significant problems later, potentially jeopardizing the project's long-term success and the organization's operational stability. This approach demonstrates poor judgment in prioritizing, potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if the unmitigated risks have compliance implications. It also erodes stakeholder confidence in the long run if the project encounters issues due to overlooked risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with thoroughly understanding stakeholder feedback and its implications. This involves analyzing the feedback to identify potential risks and opportunities. Next, a comprehensive risk assessment should be conducted, involving identification, analysis, and evaluation of these risks. Based on this assessment, a prioritized list of risks should be developed, and appropriate mitigation strategies should be formulated. Crucially, these strategies must be integrated into the project plan with clear ownership and timelines. Regular monitoring and review of risks and mitigation efforts are essential throughout the project lifecycle. Communication with stakeholders about the risk assessment process, identified risks, and mitigation plans is vital for managing expectations and ensuring alignment. Question 3. Research into the regulatory framework governing data privacy and security in the United States. What is the most effective approach for an IBM CognosBI professional to ensure that sensitive customer data within reports is accessed and utilized in strict compliance with these regulations? Option A. Rely on general IT security policies and assume that standard network security measures adequately protect sensitive data within Cognos reports. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of CognosBI security configurations and user access roles, mapping them against specific U.S. data privacy and security regulations, and implement granular access controls and robust auditing. Option C. Assume that the default security settings within IBM CognosBI are sufficient to meet all U.S. regulatory compliance requirements for data access. Option D. Prioritize report performance and user convenience by granting broader access to sensitive data within Cognos reports, with the understanding that data can be reviewed for compliance later. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of CognosBI security configurations and user access roles, mapping them against specific U.S. data privacy and security regulations, and implement granular access controls and robust auditing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to regulatory compliance in the context of IBM CognosBI. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that data access and reporting practices within Cognos adhere strictly to the specified regulatory framework, which in this case is implied to be a U.S.-centric framework given the exam's context. Professionals must navigate the complexities of data governance, privacy, and security regulations to prevent unauthorized access or misuse of sensitive information. The challenge is amplified by the potential for misinterpretation of regulations, the dynamic nature of data, and the need to balance business intelligence needs with compliance obligations. Careful judgment is required to implement controls that are both effective and practical within the Cognos environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and systematic review of CognosBI security configurations and user access roles against the relevant U.S. regulatory requirements. This includes identifying sensitive data elements, mapping them to regulatory definitions, e.g., PI under HIPAA or GLBA, and ensuring that access controls within Cognos are granular enough to enforce least privilege. Implementing robust auditing and logging mechanisms to track data access and report generation is also crucial for demonstrating compliance and enabling forensic analysis if needed. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory mandate by embedding compliance into the operational framework of the BI tool. It aligns with principles of data protection and privacy mandated by U.S. laws, ensuring that data is accessed and used only by authorized individuals for legitimate business purposes. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to rely solely on general IT security policies without specific validation against the CognosBI environment and the applicable U.S. regulations. This fails because general policies may not adequately address the specific data handling and access control nuances within a BI platform, potentially leaving gaps in compliance. For example, a generic policy might not cover the specific requirements for masking or encrypting sensitive data within reports as mandated by certain U.S. regulations. Another incorrect approach is to assume that default Cognos security settings are sufficient for regulatory compliance. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Default settings are often designed for broad usability and may not incorporate the stringent controls required by specific U.S. laws, leading to potential overaccess to sensitive data and noncompliance. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize user convenience and report performance over strict adherence to access controls. This is a critical ethical and regulatory failure. While efficiency is important, it cannot supersede legal obligations to protect sensitive data. Allowing broad access for convenience creates a high risk of data breaches and regulatory penalties, violating principles of data stewardship and accountability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to regulatory compliance within IBM CognosBI. This involves 1. Understanding the specific U.S. regulatory landscape applicable to the data being processed and reported. 2. Conducting a thorough assessment of the CognosBI environment, including data sources, report content, and user access configurations. 3. Implementing and regularly reviewing security controls within Cognos that directly map to regulatory requirements, focusing on data classification, access provisioning, and auditing. 4. Establishing clear data governance policies and procedures that are integrated with CognosBI operations. 5. Regularly training users and administrators on compliance requirements and best practices. 6. Maintaining comprehensive documentation of compliance efforts and audit trails. Question 4. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the time taken to generate the quarterly earnings report using IBM CognosBI. Stakeholders are concerned about potential delays in regulatory filings. Which of the following investigative approaches best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory expectations for financial reporting systems? Option A. Immediately upgrade the server hardware to the latest specification, assuming that increased processing power will resolve the performance issue. Option B. Focus solely on optimizing the SQL queries within the reports, as this is often the primary driver of performance issues. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive review of the CognosBI environment, including data sources, ETL processes, report design, and server performance, to identify the root cause of the increased processing time. Option D. Advise stakeholders that the performance issue is likely due to external network latency, and suggest they adjust their internal timelines accordingly. The correct answer is C. Initiate a comprehensive review of the CognosBI environment, including data sources, ETL processes, report design, and server performance, to identify the root cause of the increased processing time. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in data processing times for critical financial reports generated by IBM CognosBI. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts the timeliness and accuracy of information relied upon by stakeholders for decision-making, potentially leading to regulatory breaches if reporting deadlines are missed. The pressure to resolve this issue quickly, while maintaining data integrity and adhering to established governance frameworks, requires careful judgment. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation of the CognosBI environment, focusing on potential bottlenecks within the data sources, ETL processes, report design, and server infrastructure. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a thorough root cause analysis before implementing solutions. It also adheres to regulatory expectations for maintaining reliable and auditable financial reporting systems. By documenting each step of the investigation and the rationale for any changes, professionals ensure transparency and compliance with internal controls and external regulations that mandate accurate and timely financial disclosures. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a broad, untested fix, such as increasing server resources without understanding the underlying cause. This could be costly, ineffective, and potentially introduce new issues. From a regulatory perspective, this approach fails to demonstrate due diligence in maintaining system integrity and could be seen as a disregard for proper change management procedures, which are often mandated by financial regulations to ensure the reliability of reporting systems. Another incorrect approach would be to blame external factors or other departments without conducting a thorough internal investigation. This demonstrates a lack of accountability and can lead to delays in resolution, potentially causing further reporting issues. Ethically, it erodes trust among stakeholders and fails to uphold the professional responsibility to identify and resolve system problems proactively. This approach also risks violating internal policies and external regulations that require clear lines of responsibility for system performance and data accuracy. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed over accuracy by making quick, superficial adjustments to reports or data models without validating their impact. This could lead to the generation of inaccurate financial reports, which is a direct violation of financial regulations and ethical standards. Stakeholders rely on the integrity of the data, and any compromise in this area can have severe legal and financial consequences. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the problem and its impact. 2. Establishing a cross-functional team if necessary. 3. Developing a structured investigation plan. 4. Prioritizing data integrity and regulatory compliance throughout the process. 5. Documenting all findings, actions, and decisions. 6. Communicating progress and outcomes to relevant stakeholders. 7. Implementing solutions methodically with thorough testing and validation. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates that the new IBM CognosBI reporting suite has been fully deployed and is accessible to all departments, but initial reviews indicate that some reports contain sensitive customer financial details that were not explicitly categorized as restricted during the deployment planning phase. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Proceed with full user access as planned, assuming that users will exercise discretion and that the benefits of immediate access outweigh the potential risks. Option B. Immediately restrict access to the reports containing sensitive data, initiate a data classification review for all reports, and communicate the temporary access limitations to affected departments while a remediation plan is developed. Option C. Focus on enhancing the technical security measures of the CognosBI server itself, such as strengthening authentication protocols, without altering report access or data visibility. Option D. Halt all further use of the IBM CognosBI reporting suite until a comprehensive, long-term data governance policy can be drafted and approved, which may take several months. The correct answer is B. Immediately restrict access to the reports containing sensitive data, initiate a data classification review for all reports, and communicate the temporary access limitations to affected departments while a remediation plan is developed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for data-driven insights with the long-term implications of data governance and regulatory compliance. The core tension lies in the potential for a powerful analytical tool like IBM CognosBI to surface sensitive or restricted information if not properly managed. The professional must exercise careful judgment to ensure that the benefits of enhanced reporting do not inadvertently lead to breaches of data privacy, security, or internal policy. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-aware decision-making framework by first identifying and classifying the data, then assessing the potential impact of its exposure, and finally implementing appropriate controls before widespread deployment. Professionals adhere to principles of data stewardship and due diligence. This proactive stance aligns with regulatory expectations for data protection and ethical handling of information, ensuring that the organization remains compliant with relevant data privacy laws and internal governance standards. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible innovation, where technological advancement is tempered by a robust understanding of potential risks. An incorrect approach that involves immediately granting broad access without prior assessment fails to acknowledge the inherent risks associated with data. This could lead to regulatory failures, such as violations of data privacy regulations, e.g., GDPR, CCPA, depending on the jurisdiction specified for the exam, which for C2020-180 IBM CognosBI Professional is assumed to be a general professional context without a specific country mandate unless otherwise stated, implying adherence to general data protection principles. Ethically, it represents a lapse in professional responsibility by not safeguarding sensitive information. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying deployment indefinitely due to fear of potential issues, stifles innovation and prevents the organization from realizing the legitimate business benefits of the reporting system. This can be seen as a failure of professional duty to leverage tools effectively for organizational improvement, potentially leading to missed opportunities and competitive disadvantage. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical implementation without considering the business context and user needs, overlooks the critical aspect of usability and adoption, which can render even the most technically sound solution ineffective and potentially lead to workarounds that bypass intended controls. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves 1. Problem/opportunity identification. Clearly define the objective of implementing or enhancing the reporting system. 2. Information gathering. Understand the data sources, types of data, and intended users. 3. Risk assessment. Identify potential risks related to data privacy, security, compliance, and operational impact. 4. Option generation. Brainstorm various approaches to address the objective while mitigating risks. 5. Evaluation of options. Assess each option against criteria such as effectiveness, efficiency, compliance, and ethical considerations. 6. Decision-making. Select the option that best balances benefits and risks. 7. Implementation and monitoring. Put the chosen solution into practice and continuously monitor its performance and adherence to controls. Question 6. Which approach would be most appropriate when a client requests a CognosBI report that, while technically feasible, would present data in a way that could be easily misinterpreted to support a predetermined conclusion, and the professional suspects the client intends to use this misinterpretation for strategic advantage. Option A. Modify the underlying data within CognosBI to ensure the report aligns with the client's desired conclusion, thereby fulfilling their request directly. Option B. Politely explain to the client the potential for misinterpretation of the data as requested, offer to present the data in a more neutral and objective format, and discuss alternative reporting methods that accurately reflect the underlying information. Option C. Proceed with generating the report exactly as requested by the client, assuming the client is aware of the implications and is responsible for their own interpretation. Option D. Refuse to create the report altogether, citing concerns about data presentation without offering any alternative solutions or explanations. The correct answer is B. Politely explain to the client the potential for misinterpretation of the data as requested, offer to present the data in a more neutral and objective format, and discuss alternative reporting methods that accurately reflect the underlying information. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's desire for a specific outcome and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and unbiased reporting. The professional must navigate the pressure to conform to the client's expectations while upholding the integrity of the data and the reporting process. The core of the challenge lies in maintaining objectivity and transparency when faced with a request that could lead to misrepresentation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and ethical reporting standards. By clearly communicating the limitations and potential misinterpretations of the requested report, the professional demonstrates a commitment to accuracy and avoids misleading the client or any downstream users of the report. This aligns with the principles of professional conduct that emphasize honesty, integrity, and due care in all professional engagements. Specifically, it upholds the expectation that professionals will not knowingly participate in the creation or dissemination of false or misleading information, even at the behest of a client. An incorrect approach that involves altering the data or manipulating the report to achieve the client's desired outcome would constitute a serious ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This would violate the principle of professional integrity and could lead to misinformed business decisions by the client or other stakeholders. It also undermines the credibility of the professional and their organization. Another incorrect approach, which is to simply refuse to provide any report without offering alternatives or explanations, fails to demonstrate professional diligence and client service. While it avoids direct ethical compromise, does not actively seek a solution that balances client needs with professional obligations. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of ethical guidelines and professional standards. The professional should first assess the request against these standards. If the request appears problematic, the next step is to engage in open and honest communication with the client, explaining the concerns and the potential implications of their request. The professional should then explore alternative reporting methods or data presentations that can meet the client's underlying business need without compromising accuracy or integrity. If a mutually acceptable solution cannot be found, the professional must be prepared to decline the engagement if it would require them to act unethically. Question 7. The review process indicates that the proposed IBM CognosBI implementation for financial reporting is encountering resistance from the compliance department due to concerns about the auditability of data transformations and the segregation of duties within the reporting workflow. The project team is pushing for a rapid deployment to meet upcoming regulatory deadlines. What is the most appropriate course of action for the IBM CognosBI professional? Option A. Prioritize the integration of CognosBI's built-in audit logging features and implement strict access controls to enforce segregation of duties, even if it requires a slight delay in the initial deployment phase, to ensure full compliance with financial reporting regulations. Option B. Proceed with the rapid deployment as planned, assuring the compliance department that post-deployment audits will address any potential issues and that manual workarounds can be used for segregation of duties in the interim. Option C. Focus solely on meeting the regulatory deadlines by implementing the core reporting functionalities and deferring the auditability and segregation of duties features to a later phase, assuming that the current data sources are inherently trustworthy. Option D. Recommend a complete redesign of the data warehousing strategy to incorporate more granular audit trails, which would significantly extend the project timeline, but guarantee absolute compliance with all potential future regulatory changes. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the integration of CognosBI's built-in audit logging features and implement strict access controls to enforce segregation of duties, even if it requires a slight delay in the initial deployment phase, to ensure full compliance with financial reporting regulations. Explanation: the review process indicates a potential misalignment between the technical capabilities of IBM CognosBI and the strategic business objectives of the organization, specifically concerning data governance and reporting accuracy. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the professional to bridge the gap between technical implementation and business needs, ensuring that the chosen BI solution not only functions technically, but also adheres to regulatory requirements and supports informed decision-making. The pressure to deliver a functional system quickly can sometimes overshadow the critical need for robust data governance, which is paramount in regulated industries. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of both the business requirements and the regulatory landscape before finalizing the CognosBI implementation strategy. This ensures that data is managed, secured, and reported in a manner that complies with relevant regulations, such as those governing financial reporting or data privacy, and that the system directly supports strategic business goals. This proactive, requirements-driven approach minimizes the risk of noncompliance, data breaches, and misreporting, which can lead to significant financial penalties and reputational damage. It also fosters trust among stakeholders by demonstrating a commitment to accuracy and integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical features of CognosBI without adequate consideration for business context and regulatory compliance would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a system that is technically sound, but fails to meet critical business needs or, worse, violates data governance policies or regulatory mandates. For instance, implementing reporting features that do not adequately mask sensitive data or do not provide auditable trails for critical financial figures would be a direct violation of data privacy regulations and financial reporting standards. Another incorrect approach might involve prioritizing speed of deployment over thorough testing and validation of data integrity, increasing the risk of inaccurate reports and subsequent regulatory scrutiny. A third incorrect approach could be to ignore stakeholder feedback regarding data interpretation and usability, leading to a system that is technically functional but not adopted or trusted by the business users, thereby failing to achieve its strategic purpose and potentially leading to workarounds that bypass governance controls. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive discovery phase to understand business objectives and regulatory obligations. This should be followed by a detailed requirements gathering process, mapping these requirements to the capabilities of IBM CognosBI. A risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential compliance and operational risks associated with different implementation choices. Finally, a phased implementation approach with continuous stakeholder engagement and validation ensures that the solution evolves to meet both technical and business needs while maintaining regulatory adherence. Question 8. The analysis reveals that the current data processing and reporting workflows within the IBM CognosBI environment are experiencing significant delays, impacting the timely delivery of critical business intelligence to key stakeholders. To address this, a proposal has been made to implement a series of rapid, ad hoc adjustments to data models and report queries, bypassing the standard change management and impact assessment procedures, with the stated goal of immediate performance improvement. Option A. Proceed with the proposed ad hoc adjustments to data models and report queries, prioritizing immediate performance gains over formal process and documentation requirements. Option B. Rely on the expertise of a senior developer to make unilateral changes to the CognosBI environment based on their experience, without formal documentation or validation from other team members. Option C. Implement a structured process optimization initiative that includes thorough impact analysis, stakeholder consultation, rigorous testing, and adherence to change control protocols before deploying any modifications. Option D. focus solely on optimizing the underlying database performance, assuming that improvements at the data source will automatically resolve the CognosBI processing delays without altering the CognosBI configuration. The correct answer is C. Implement a structured process optimization initiative that includes thorough impact analysis, stakeholder consultation, rigorous testing, and adherence to change control protocols before deploying any modifications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient data processing and reporting with the imperative to maintain data integrity and comply with established governance frameworks. The pressure to deliver timely insights can lead to shortcuts that compromise accuracy and auditability, which are fundamental to regulatory compliance and sound business practice. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process optimizations that enhance efficiency without introducing risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented methodology for process improvement. By involving stakeholders, conducting thorough impact assessments, and adhering to change management protocols, it ensures that any modifications to the CognosBI environment are controlled, understood, and validated. This aligns with the principles of good data governance, which mandate transparency, accountability, and risk mitigation. Such a structured approach minimizes the likelihood of introducing errors, ensures that optimizations are aligned with business objectives, and provides a clear audit trail, all of which are critical for regulatory adherence and maintaining stakeholder trust. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on performance tuning without considering the broader implications fails to acknowledge the interconnectedness of system components and data flows. This can lead to unintended consequences, such as data corruption or the generation of misleading reports, which have direct regulatory and ethical implications. Specifically, it could violate principles of data accuracy and reliability, potentially leading to non-compliance with reporting standards or internal policies. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established change control procedures introduces significant risk. This lack of oversight can result in undocumented modifications, making it difficult to troubleshoot issues, revert changes, or demonstrate compliance during audits. Ethically, it undermines the principles of accountability and transparency, as the responsibility for changes becomes unclear. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or individual expertise without empirical validation is professionally unsound. It lacks the rigor necessary to ensure that optimizations are effective and sustainable. This can lead to wasted effort, continued inefficiencies, or the introduction of new problems, all of which are detrimental to professional practice and can indirectly lead to compliance issues if reporting accuracy is affected. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the current process and its objectives. This involves identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement through data-driven analysis and stakeholder consultation. Next, potential solutions should be evaluated against criteria that include efficiency gains, impact on data integrity, security implications, and alignment with governance policies. A pilot or testing phase is crucial before full implementation, followed by comprehensive documentation and ongoing monitoring. This iterative and controlled approach ensures that process optimizations are both effective and compliant. Question 9. The control framework reveals a critical business requirement to deliver a comprehensive financial performance report from IBM CognosBI by the end of the day. However, during the final validation phase, a data anomaly is detected in a key revenue stream, which, if unaddressed, could materially misstate the overall profitability. The project lead is under significant pressure to meet the deadline. Which of the following actions best upholds professional responsibility and regulatory compliance? Option A. Proceed with the report's delivery as scheduled, making a note in the executive summary about the potential data anomaly without further investigation or correction. Option B. Attempt to manually adjust the revenue figures to compensate for the anomaly, assuming it's a minor fluctuation, and proceed with the report. Option C. Inform management that the report cannot be delivered on time due to the anomaly and suggest postponing the delivery until the anomaly is fully resolved, without providing a clear plan for resolution. Option D. Immediately halt the report's delivery, investigate the root cause of the data anomaly, and work with the data governance team to correct the data before finalizing and distributing the report. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the report's delivery as scheduled, making a note in the executive summary about the potential data anomaly without further investigation or correction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a business imperative, timely report delivery, and the ethical obligation to ensure data accuracy and integrity, especially when dealing with sensitive financial information. The pressure to deliver a report quickly, even with known data anomalies, requires a careful balancing act that prioritizes regulatory compliance and professional ethics over expediency. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the data integrity issue before report finalization. This aligns with the principles of professional conduct that mandate accuracy, honesty, and due diligence. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit regulatory expectation that financial reports, particularly those generated by systems like IBM CognosBI, must be based on reliable and validated data. Failing to address data anomalies before reporting could lead to misinterpretations, incorrect business decisions, and potential regulatory breaches if the report is used for compliance purposes. This approach demonstrates a commitment to the integrity of the information being disseminated, which is a cornerstone of professional responsibility. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate delivery without addressing the data anomalies would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It would violate the principle of professional integrity by knowingly submitting potentially inaccurate information. This could lead to breaches of data governance policies, misrepresentation of financial performance, and a loss of trust from stakeholders. Furthermore, depending on the specific regulations governing the use of such reports, e.g., financial reporting standards, submitting a report with known errors could have legal ramifications. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to fix the data without proper investigation or documentation, is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses established data validation and correction procedures, potentially masking underlying issues and creating a false sense of accuracy. It undermines the audit trail and can lead to future problems if the root cause of the anomaly is not identified and resolved. This approach lacks transparency and accountability, which are critical in professional environments. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify the core conflict, business need versus data integrity. Second, consult relevant internal policies and external regulations regarding data accuracy and reporting standards. Third, communicate the identified data anomalies to relevant stakeholders, clearly outlining the potential impact on the report's accuracy and the business decisions it might inform. Fourth, propose a course of action that prioritizes data validation and correction, even if it means a slight delay in delivery, and clearly articulate the rationale for this delay. Finally, document all communications, decisions, and actions taken to ensure transparency and accountability. This framework ensures that decisions are not only expedient, but also ethically sound and compliant with professional and regulatory obligations. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new IBM CognosBI reporting solution offers significant potential for cost reduction and improved operational efficiency. However, the proposed solution involves integrating data from several disparate legacy systems, some of which have less robust data governance controls. Which approach best balances the benefits of the new solution with the imperative of regulatory compliance and data integrity? Option A. Proceed with the implementation of the new reporting solution, focusing on the technical aspects and cost savings, and address any potential data governance or regulatory issues as they arise post-deployment. Option B. Implement the new reporting solution using only the most readily accessible and well-governed data sources, deferring integration of other data until a later phase, and assume that existing reporting processes for the deferred data remain adequate. Option C. Prioritize the development of a comprehensive data governance framework and conduct a thorough audit of all data sources for regulatory compliance before proceeding with the implementation of the new reporting solution. Option D. Focus on the immediate technical integration of all data sources into the new reporting solution to maximize the immediate benefits, and rely on the inherent security features of IBM CognosBI to mitigate any regulatory risks. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the implementation of the new reporting solution, focusing on the technical aspects and cost savings, and address any potential data governance or regulatory issues as they arise post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the perceived immediate benefits of a new reporting solution against the potential long-term risks and compliance implications. The pressure to deliver a quick solution, driven by stakeholder expectations, can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity and regulatory adherence. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen solution not only meets functional requirements, but also aligns with the established regulatory framework for financial reporting and data governance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing regulatory landscape and its implications for data management and reporting. By engaging with compliance officers and legal counsel, the professional ensures that any proposed solution is designed with regulatory adherence as a foundational element, not an afterthought. This proactive engagement mitigates the risk of non-compliance, which can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and legal repercussions. Adhering to the specified regulatory framework, which for C2020-180 IBM CognosBI professional, assuming a U.S. context for illustrative purposes, would involve regulations like SOX, GDPR if applicable to data handling, and industry-specific financial reporting standards, is paramount. This approach demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling and transparent reporting, which are core tenets of professional responsibility in the financial technology sector. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical feasibility and cost savings without adequate consideration of regulatory impact is professionally unacceptable. This failure to consult with compliance and legal teams represents a significant ethical lapse, as it disregards the organization's legal obligations and the potential harm to stakeholders if data is reported inaccurately or in a non-compliant manner. Such an approach could lead to violations of data privacy laws, financial reporting standards, and internal governance policies, resulting in fines, audits, and loss of trust. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over comprehensive testing and validation of regulatory compliance is also professionally unsound. While efficiency is desirable, it should not come at the expense of accuracy and adherence to legal requirements. This oversight could result in the deployment of a system that generates misleading reports, thereby exposing the organization to regulatory scrutiny and potential sanctions. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment that explicitly includes regulatory compliance as a key risk factor. Professionals should adopt a stakeholder-centric approach, actively seeking input from all relevant parties, including business users, IT, compliance, and legal. A phased implementation strategy, with clear checkpoints for regulatory review at each stage, is advisable. Furthermore, continuous monitoring and auditing of the reporting system post-implementation are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and data integrity. The decision-making framework should always default to ensuring compliance and ethical conduct, even if it means a slightly longer implementation timeline. Question 11. During the evaluation of a critical sales performance report generated in IBM CognosBI, a business analyst identifies a discrepancy between the report's figures and figures from a separate operational system. The analyst suspects that a recent change in how sales commissions are calculated in the source system might be impacting the Cognos report's data aggregation. To quickly resolve the discrepancy and provide accurate figures for an upcoming executive meeting, the analyst considers several immediate actions. Option A. Inform the executive team about the discrepancy and suggest they refer to the operational system for the most up-to-date commission figures until the Cognos report can be investigated at a later date. Option B. Initiate a thorough review of the Cognos report's data model and query subjects to identify how the commission data is being joined and aggregated, and compare this logic against the updated commission calculation rules from the source system. Document any discrepancies found and propose a correction to the Cognos report's metadata or query logic, seeking stakeholder approval before implementation. Option C. Manually adjust the aggregated commission figures within the Cognos report's output interface to match the figures from the operational system, without investigating the root cause of the discrepancy in the data model or source system integration. Option D. Directly modify the underlying database tables that feed the Cognos report to align the commission figures with the expected output, assuming the new calculation logic is correct and will be permanently adopted. The correct answer is B. Initiate a thorough review of the Cognos report's data model and query subjects to identify how the commission data is being joined and aggregated, and compare this logic against the updated commission calculation rules from the source system. Document any discrepancies found and propose a correction to the Cognos report's metadata or query logic, seeking stakeholder approval before implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in data governance and reporting integrity within an organization utilizing IBM CognosBI. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for timely, actionable insights with the imperative to maintain data accuracy and adhere to internal policies and potentially external regulatory requirements. Though specific external regulations are not detailed for this exam, the principle of data integrity remains paramount. The professional must exercise careful judgment to ensure that any modifications or enhancements to existing reports do not inadvertently compromise the trustworthiness of the data presented. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, documented, and collaborative process for validating data transformations. This ensures that any changes are understood, approved, and their impact on downstream reporting is thoroughly assessed. This aligns with principles of good data stewardship and auditable reporting, which are foundational for reliable business intelligence. By involving stakeholders and maintaining clear documentation, the professional upholds transparency and accountability in the reporting process. An incorrect approach that involves directly altering the underlying data source without proper validation or documentation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses established data governance protocols, leading to a lack of auditability and a high risk of introducing errors that could mislead decision makers. Such an action undermines the integrity of the reporting system and could have severe consequences if decisions are made based on flawed data. Another incorrect approach, such as making undocumented changes to Cognos report specifications that alter data logic, also fails to meet professional standards. This creates a black box effect where the source of discrepancies is unknown, making troubleshooting and compliance verification impossible. It violates the principle of transparency and can lead to a loss of confidence in the reporting system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the reporting requirements, the existing data architecture, and the organization's data governance policies. When faced with a need for change, the professional should always 1. Clearly define the objective of the change. 2. Assess the potential impact on data integrity and existing reports. 3. Consult relevant stakeholders and data owners. 4. Document all proposed changes and their rationale. 5. Implement changes through approved channels with thorough testing and validation. 6. Obtain formal sign-off before deploying changes to production. This structured approach ensures that changes are made responsibly and maintain the overall quality and reliability of the business intelligence solution. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to integrate real-time operational data from a new transactional system into existing IBM CognosBI dashboards to provide more up-to-the-minute insights. This integration involves significant changes to data models and report structures within Cognos. Which of the following approaches best addresses this request while adhering to professional best practices and regulatory considerations for data integrity and system stability? Option A. Implement the integration by creating new, separate Cognos packages and reports for the real-time data, leaving existing operational reports and data sources untouched to minimize disruption. Option B. Inform stakeholders that real-time integration is not feasible with the current CognosBI infrastructure and suggest they explore alternative reporting solutions that can handle such requirements. Option C. Proceed with the integration immediately by modifying existing Cognos data sources and reports to connect to the new transactional system, prioritizing stakeholder satisfaction and rapid deployment of new insights. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all affected Cognos components, data flows, security configurations, and potential performance implications. This assessment will inform a phased implementation plan with robust testing and rollback procedures. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the integration immediately by modifying existing Cognos data sources and reports to connect to the new transactional system, prioritizing stakeholder satisfaction and rapid deployment of new insights. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT project management, where evolving business needs necessitate changes to a deployed system. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate demands of stakeholders with the long-term stability, security, and compliance of the IBM CognosBI environment. A hasty or poorly assessed change can introduce significant risks, including data integrity issues, performance degradation, security vulnerabilities, and non-compliance with internal policies or external regulations. The need for a structured impact assessment is paramount to ensure that all potential ramifications are understood and mitigated before implementation. The correct approach, which involves a formal impact assessment process, represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of responsible system management and change control. This process typically includes identifying all affected components, users, and processes, evaluating the technical, operational, and business implications, assessing risks and dependencies, and developing a mitigation plan. In the context of IBM CognosBI, this would involve analyzing how the proposed changes affect data sources, reports, dashboards, security models, user access, performance, and integration points. Adhering to a documented change management process, which includes impact assessment, is often a regulatory or compliance requirement, ensuring auditability and accountability. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately performs an impact assessment carries significant regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, implementing changes without a thorough assessment could violate data governance policies, which mandate the protection of data integrity and confidentiality. It could also lead to a breach of security protocols if new vulnerabilities are introduced, potentially contravening data protection regulations. Furthermore, failing to document the assessment and the rationale for changes undermines audit trails, which are critical for compliance with financial reporting standards or industry-specific regulations. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the potential negative consequences on the business and its users. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach to change management. This begins with clearly defining the proposed change and its objectives. Next, a comprehensive impact assessment must be conducted, involving relevant technical experts, business users, and security personnel. This assessment should identify all potential impacts across technical infrastructure, application functionality, data, security, and business operations. Based on the assessment findings, risks should be quantified and mitigation strategies developed. A formal approval process based on the documented impact and risk assessment should then be followed before any changes are implemented. Post-implementation monitoring and validation are also crucial to ensure the change has been successful and has not introduced unforeseen issues. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that a critical regulatory financial report generated using IBM CognosBI contains sensitive customer account information. The reporting team requires access to this data to compile the report accurately and on time, but the organization is subject to strict data privacy and financial reporting regulations. What is the most appropriate strategy to ensure both accurate reporting and regulatory compliance regarding data access and protection? Option A. Rely solely on the security measures of the underlying database, assuming that CognosBI will inherit sufficient protection without specific configuration. Option B. Implement granular, role-based access controls within IBM CognosBI. Utilize data masking for non-essential sensitive fields in the report, and ensure comprehensive auditing of data access and modifications. Option C. Grant all members of the reporting team full administrative access to the CognosBI environment to expedite data retrieval and report compilation. Option D. Disable auditing features in IBM CognosBI for the sensitive data to simplify the reporting process and improve performance. The correct answer is B. Implement granular role-based access controls within IBM CognosBI, utilize data masking for non-essential sensitive fields in the report, and ensure comprehensive auditing of data access and modifications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data governance and reporting where the integrity of sensitive financial data is paramount. The professional is tasked with ensuring that a critical regulatory report, generated using IBM CognosBI, accurately reflects the underlying data while adhering to strict data privacy and accuracy mandates. The challenge lies in balancing the need for timely reporting with the imperative to maintain data confidentiality and prevent unauthorized access or modification, especially when dealing with potentially sensitive customer financial information. The professional must navigate the complexities of access control, data masking, and audit trails within the Cognos environment to meet these obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multi-layered strategy that prioritizes data security and compliance. Implementing role-based access controls (RBAC) within IBM CognosBI ensures that users only see data relevant to their roles, thereby protecting sensitive information. This aligns with principles of least privilege, a fundamental security concept. Furthermore, employing data masking techniques for non-essential sensitive fields in reports, coupled with robust auditing and logging of data access and modifications, directly addresses regulatory requirements for data privacy and accountability. This comprehensive approach ensures data integrity, confidentiality, and auditability, which are critical for regulatory compliance and maintaining stakeholder trust. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to grant broad access to all users involved in the reporting process, assuming that trust and internal policies are sufficient to prevent misuse. This fails to meet regulatory requirements for data protection and privacy, as it creates an unacceptable risk of unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive financial data. It bypasses essential security controls designed to prevent data breaches and maintain confidentiality. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the underlying database security without leveraging CognosBI's specific security features. While database security is important, it may not provide the granular, report-specific access controls needed to comply with regulations. This oversight can lead to users accessing more data than they are authorized for within the reporting context, violating data privacy principles and potentially exposing sensitive information in ways not intended by the business or regulators. A third incorrect approach would be to disable auditing features to simplify report generation or improve performance. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Auditing is crucial for demonstrating compliance, investigating data discrepancies, and holding individuals accountable for their actions. Disabling it leaves the organization vulnerable to undetected data manipulation, errors, and noncompliance, making it impossible to provide an auditable trail of data access and changes, as often mandated by financial regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this domain must adopt a risk-based approach to data security and governance. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the data being handled, e.g., financial services regulations, data privacy laws. The decision-making process should prioritize implementing controls that directly address these regulatory requirements. This includes a thorough assessment of data sensitivity, user roles, and potential threats. Professionals should leverage the security features of their BI tools, like IBM CognosBI, to enforce data access policies, ensure data integrity, and maintain comprehensive audit trails. When in doubt, consulting with legal and compliance teams is essential to ensure all regulatory obligations are met. Question 14. Regulatory review indicates a business unit requires access to detailed customer transaction data within IBM CognosBI for a new predictive analytics project aimed at identifying potential churn. The data contains personally identifiable information, PI, and is subject to strict internal data handling policies and relevant data protection regulations. The business unit has requested broad read access to the relevant data marts. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Conduct a thorough data classification and risk assessment to determine the minimum necessary data elements and access privileges required for the project, implementing appropriate anonymization or pseudonymization techniques where feasible, and ensuring robust access controls and audit trails are in place before granting access. Option B. Prove the request based on a verbal confirmation from the business unit manager that the project is critical and that they will ensure data is handled responsibly, without formal documentation of the assessment or controls. Option C. Grant the business unit broad read access to the relevant data marked as requested, assuming their stated business purpose justifies the access and that internal policies are sufficiently covered by existing security measures. Option D. Deny the request outright, citing the sensitive nature of the data and the potential for misuse, and inform the business unit that such access cannot be provided under any circumstances. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough data classification and risk assessment to determine the minimum necessary data elements and access privileges required for the project, implementing appropriate anonymization or pseudonymization techniques where feasible, and ensuring robust access controls and audit trails are in place before granting access. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in data governance and reporting, where a business unit requests access to sensitive customer data for a new analytical initiative. The challenge lies in balancing the business's need for data-driven insights with the stringent regulatory requirements for data privacy and security, particularly under the framework relevant to IBM CognosBI professional certifications, which often imply adherence to data protection laws. The professional must navigate the potential for unauthorized access, data breaches, and noncompliance with data handling policies. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, risk-based decision-making process that aligns with regulatory mandates. It involves a thorough assessment of the data's sensitivity, the purpose of access, the security controls in place, and the necessity of granting the requested access. This approach ensures that any data access is compliant, secure, and serves a legitimate business purpose, thereby upholding professional integrity and regulatory obligation. It prioritizes data minimization, purpose limitation, and robust security measures, which are cornerstones of data protection regulations. An incorrect approach that grants broad access without proper vetting fails to adhere to the principle of least privilege and adequate data protection. This could lead to regulatory violations, such as unauthorized processing of personal data or inadequate security measures, resulting in potential fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that denies access outright, without exploring alternative, compliant solutions, might stifle innovation and hinder legitimate business objectives, demonstrating a lack of proactive problem-solving and a failure to understand the nuances of data governance. A third incorrect approach that relies on informal approvals bypasses established governance protocols, creating a significant compliance risk and undermining the integrity of the data access process. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the request and its business justification. This is followed by an assessment of the data involved, identifying its sensitivity and any associated regulatory restrictions. Next, evaluate the proposed use case against data protection principles and organizational policies. Then, determine the minimum necessary access required and the appropriate security controls. Finally, document the decision and the rationale, ensuring transparency and auditability. This systematic process ensures that decisions are not only effective but also compliant and ethically sound. Question 15. The audit findings indicate a recurring discrepancy between the data presented in key IBM CognosBI reports and the underlying source system records, leading to concerns about data integrity and potential regulatory noncompliance. Several departments are relying on these reports for critical decision-making. Which of the following actions best addresses this situation from a stakeholder and regulatory compliance perspective? Option A. Immediately update the CognosBI report definitions to reflect the perceived needs of the most vocal department heads without altering the underlying data extraction or validation processes. Option B. Conduct a deep dive into the CognosBI metadata and query performance, assuming the issue is purely a technical limitation within the reporting tool itself. Option C. Advise stakeholders that the discrepancies are minor and unlikely to impact decision-making, and focus on optimizing CognosBI performance for faster report generation. Option D. Implement a comprehensive data governance framework that includes clear data ownership, robust data validation rules within CognosBI and at the data source, and a structured process for stakeholder education on data interpretation and limitations. Correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive data governance framework that includes clear data ownership, robust data validation rules within CognosBI and at the data source, and a structured process for stakeholder education on data interpretation and limitations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in managing stakeholder expectations and ensuring the integrity of reporting within a regulated environment. The audit findings highlight a potential disconnect between the perceived accuracy of CognosBI reports and the actual data governance practices. The core challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for actionable insights with the long-term requirement for robust data quality and compliance, especially when different stakeholder groups have varying levels of technical understanding and priorities. The pressure to deliver timely reports can conflict with the meticulous processes required for data validation and governance, creating a tension that requires careful navigation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and collaborative strategy that prioritizes data governance and stakeholder education. By establishing clear data ownership, implementing rigorous validation processes, and providing comprehensive training on data interpretation, the organization demonstrates a commitment to accuracy and compliance. This aligns with the principles of responsible data management, which are often implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory frameworks that emphasize data integrity and auditability. Educating stakeholders on the limitations and proper use of CognosBI reports fosters a shared understanding of data quality and reduces the risk of misinterpretation or misuse, thereby upholding professional standards and regulatory expectations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Ignoring the audit findings and continuing with current reporting practices represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for internal controls and a lack of commitment to data integrity, which can lead to non-compliance with data protection and reporting regulations. This approach risks perpetuating inaccuracies and eroding trust among stakeholders. Focusing solely on technical fixes within CognosBI without addressing underlying data governance issues is another flawed approach. While technical adjustments might offer temporary improvements, they fail to tackle the root cause of data quality problems. This can lead to ongoing inaccuracies and a continued risk of regulatory breaches. As the fundamental data management processes remain weak, prioritizing stakeholder demands for immediate report modifications over data validation processes is also problematic. This approach sacrifices accuracy and compliance for expediency. It can result in the dissemination of incorrect information, potentially leading to poor business decisions and regulatory penalties. It undermines the professional responsibility to ensure the reliability of information provided to stakeholders. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the audit findings and their implications. This involves assessing the identified risks to data integrity and regulatory compliance. The next step is to engage with key stakeholders to understand their perspectives and requirements, while also clearly communicating the importance of data governance. Developing a remediation plan that addresses both technical and procedural aspects of data management is crucial. This plan should include clear timelines, assigned responsibilities, and metrics for success. Continuous monitoring and communication with stakeholders throughout the remediation process are essential to maintain trust and ensure alignment. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with professional ethics and regulatory obligations. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that a senior executive has requested a new, highly interactive dashboard feature within IBM CognosBI that aggregates real-time customer sentiment data from social media feeds, directly impacting marketing campaign adjustments. However, preliminary technical reviews suggest that integrating such a high-volume, unstructured data stream for real-time processing within the current CognosBI architecture may present significant performance and data integrity challenges, potentially conflicting with established data governance policies. What is the most professionally responsible approach to address this executive's request? Option A. Proceed with implementing the requested feature as closely as possible to the executive's specification, assuming that the benefits will outweigh any potential technical or data integrity issues. Option B. Immediately inform the executive that the request is technically unfeasible due to the limitations of the current IBM CognosBI environment and advise against pursuing it further. Option C. Conduct a detailed feasibility study to assess the technical challenges, resource implications, and potential impact on data governance and security. Present a comprehensive report to the executive outlining findings, risks, and alternative solutions that address the underlying business need within the existing framework or with a clearly defined scope for enhancement. Option D. Develop a custom solution outside of IBM CognosBI that can handle the real-time data processing without consulting the executive or the IT governance team on its integration or long-term implications. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed feasibility study to assess the technical challenges, resource implications, and potential impact on data governance and security. Present a comprehensive report to the executive outlining findings, risks, and alternative solutions that address the underlying business need within the existing framework or with a clearly defined scope for enhancement. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business intelligence projects where the perceived value of a solution is not aligned with the actual technical capabilities or the strategic objectives of the organization. The challenge lies in managing stakeholder expectations, particularly when a senior executive, who may not fully grasp the technical intricacies of IBM CognosBI, is advocating for a feature that is either technically infeasible within the current architecture or would require significant, unbudgeted resources and potentially compromise data integrity. The professional must navigate this by balancing the executive's vision with technical reality and regulatory compliance, ensuring that any proposed solution is both achievable and ethically sound. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven assessment of the feasibility and implications of the requested feature. This includes consulting with the technical team to understand the limitations of the current IBM CognosBI environment, evaluating the potential impact on data governance and security policies, and quantifying the resources, time, budget, personnel required. The professional must then present a clear, objective report to the executive, outlining the findings, potential alternative solutions that meet the underlying business need, and the associated risks and benefits. This approach upholds professional integrity by prioritizing accurate information, responsible resource allocation, and adherence to established data governance frameworks, which are implicitly governed by principles of data accuracy and security. It demonstrates a commitment to delivering value within realistic and compliant boundaries. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately agree to implement the feature without proper investigation. This is professionally unacceptable because it risks overpromising and underdelivering, potentially leading to significant project delays, budget overruns, and a loss of credibility. Ethically, it violates the principle of providing accurate and reliable information to stakeholders. It also bypasses necessary due diligence regarding data integrity and security, which could have regulatory implications if sensitive data is mishandled. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the executive's request outright without offering any constructive alternatives or explanations. This demonstrates poor communication and stakeholder management skills. It can alienate key stakeholders and create an adversarial relationship, hindering future collaboration. From a professional standpoint, it fails to explore potential solutions that might still address the executive's underlying business need, even if the specific requested feature is not feasible. A third incorrect approach would be to propose a technically complex and resource-intensive solution that technically fulfills the request, but ignores the broader organizational context, such as existing data governance policies or the overall IT strategy. This approach, while appearing to meet the immediate demand, could lead to long-term technical debt, compliance issues, and a solution that is unsustainable or incompatible with other business systems. It fails to consider the holistic impact and the principles of responsible system design and data management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with active listening to understand the stakeholders' needs and objectives. This should be followed by a comprehensive technical and business impact assessment involving relevant subject matter experts. Transparency and clear communication are paramount throughout the process. When faced with a request that appears problematic, the professional's duty is to investigate thoroughly, identify constraints, and propose viable, compliant alternatives. The ultimate goal is to align technical solutions with business strategy, while upholding ethical standards and regulatory requirements related to data accuracy, security, and responsible system implementation. Question 17. Implementation of a new data transformation process within IBM CognosBI to improve report generation speed. What is the most professionally sound approach to ensure both efficiency gains and data integrity? Option A. Implement the new transformation process directly into the production environment and rely on end-user feedback to identify and correct any data integrity issues that arise. Option B. Conduct a phased rollout of the new transformation process, starting with a pilot group, followed by comprehensive testing and validation of report outputs against established benchmarks and historical data before full deployment. Option C. Prioritize the technical optimization of the transformation code for maximum speed, assuming that any data integrity concerns will be minor and can be resolved post-deployment. Option D. Immediately deploy the new transformation process to all users to maximize the immediate benefits of increased report generation speed, addressing any data discrepancies as they are reported. The correct answer is B. Conduct a phased rollout of the new transformation process, starting with a pilot group, followed by comprehensive testing and validation of report outputs against established benchmarks and historical data before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analytics projects, balancing the need for rapid deployment of insights with the imperative to maintain data integrity and compliance. The professional challenge lies in the inherent tension between speed and thoroughness, particularly when dealing with sensitive data or regulated environments. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization efforts do not inadvertently compromise data quality, security, or regulatory adherence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and validated methodology for process optimization. This involves a phased implementation that includes rigorous testing, validation, and documentation at each stage. This aligns with general principles of good data governance and, in a regulated environment, would typically be supported by internal policies and potentially external audit requirements that mandate traceable and auditable changes to data processing workflows. Focus on iterative refinement based on performance metrics and user feedback ensures that the optimization is effective and sustainable, minimizing the risk of introducing errors or inefficiencies. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal testing and validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical risks. Specifically, it could lead to the generation of inaccurate reports or analyses, which, if relied upon for business decisions or regulatory filings, could constitute a breach of data integrity standards. In many jurisdictions, there are regulations, e.g., related to financial reporting, data privacy, or industry-specific compliance that mandate the accuracy and reliability of data. Deploying unvalidated changes can also lead to security vulnerabilities if not properly assessed for their impact on existing security controls. Furthermore, it erodes trust in the data and the analytics team. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical performance metrics without considering the business context or potential downstream impacts, is also professionally unacceptable. While technical efficiency is important, optimization efforts must ultimately serve business objectives and not create new problems. This could involve optimizing a process in a way that makes it harder for end users to understand or utilize the results, or that inadvertently excludes critical data elements necessary for compliance. A professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a clear understanding of the project objectives, the regulatory landscape, and the potential risks associated with any proposed changes. A structured approach, such as a pilot program, staged rollout, or a /B testing, allows for controlled evaluation and minimizes disruption. Professionals should always advocate for processes that ensure data accuracy, security, and compliance, even if it means a slightly longer implementation timeline. Documentation of all changes, testing procedures, and validation results is crucial for accountability and auditability. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire for a CognosBI report to highlight the exceptional performance of a new product launch, with specific requests to emphasize growth metrics and minimize any mention of initial challenges or slower adoption rates in certain segments. As the IBM CognosBI professional responsible for generating this report, how should you proceed? Option A. Generate a report that includes all data, but uses a color scheme and data point emphasis that subtly draws attention to the positive trends and distracts from less favorable information. Option B. Create visualizations that accurately represent all relevant data, including both positive growth and any initial challenges, and provide a narrative that explains the context and trends objectively. Option C. Develop a report that focuses exclusively on the most favorable growth metrics, using chart types and formatting that visually amplify these positive aspects, while omitting any data points related to initial challenges. Option D. Politely decline to create the report as requested, stating that you cannot fulfill requests that involve selective data presentation, without offering any alternative solutions. The correct answer is B. Create visualizations that accurately represent all relevant data, including both positive growth and any initial challenges, and provide a narrative that explains the context and trends objectively. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a business intelligence professional is asked to manipulate data presentation to influence a specific outcome, rather than to provide objective insights. The challenge lies in balancing the desire to meet stakeholder expectations with the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and provide unbiased reporting. The professional must navigate the potential for misinterpretation or deliberate misrepresentation of information, which can have significant consequences for decision-making and trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves clearly communicating the limitations of the data and the potential for misinterpretation if presented in a biased manner. It emphasizes the professional's responsibility to ensure that reports are accurate, objective, and provide a true reflection of the underlying data. This aligns with professional ethical codes that mandate honesty, integrity, and the avoidance of deceptive practices. By offering alternative, unbiased visualizations and explaining the rationale behind them, the professional upholds the principles of transparency and data integrity, fostering trust and enabling informed decision-making. Incorrect approaches analysis. Presenting the data in a way that exaggerates positive trends or downplays negative ones, even if technically possible with the BI tool, constitutes a failure of integrity and honesty. This misrepresents the reality of the situation and can lead to flawed business decisions based on inaccurate information. Violates the ethical duty to report truthfully and objectively. Directly refusing to create any visualization without offering alternatives or explanations can be perceived as uncooperative and may damage stakeholder relationships. While maintaining integrity is paramount, a professional should also strive to find constructive solutions that uphold ethical standards while still addressing stakeholder needs for information. This approach lacks the collaborative problem-solving expected of a professional. Creating a visualization that is technically accurate but misleading due to selective data inclusion or presentation, without explicit disclosure of these choices, is a form of deception. This undermines the purpose of business intelligence, which is to provide clear and actionable insights, and erodes trust in the reporting process. It is an ethical failure to present information in a way that is likely to mislead. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical considerations and professional integrity. This involves 1. Understanding the request and its potential implications. 2. Identifying any conflicts with ethical guidelines or professional standards. 3. Communicating concerns and potential risks to the requester, explaining the ethical and professional reasons for those concerns. 4. Proposing alternative, ethical solutions that meet the underlying need for information without compromising integrity. 5. Documenting all communications and decisions. Question 19. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the planned enhancements to the IBM CognosBI reporting suite may disrupt existing data extraction processes and alter the interpretation of key performance indicators. Which of the following approaches best addresses this feedback while adhering to professional project management standards and regulatory expectations for system changes? Option A. Proceed with the planned enhancements as scheduled, assuming that any disruptions will be minor and can be addressed through post-implementation support, as the project timeline is critical. Option B. Inform stakeholders that their concerns are noted but the project will proceed as planned, with a promise to review any issues that arise after deployment. Option C. Delegate the task of evaluating the feedback to the development team, trusting their technical expertise to identify and resolve any potential issues during the implementation phase. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment involving direct engagement with all affected business units and IT teams to document potential changes to data flows, report logic, and user workflows, and obtain formal sign-off on the findings before proceeding with the enhancements. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment involving direct engagement with all affected business units and IT teams to document potential changes to data flows, report logic, and user workflows, and obtain formal sign-off on the findings before proceeding with the enhancements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT project management, particularly within regulated environments like those governed by the C2020-180 IBM CognosBI professional framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for timely project delivery with the imperative to thoroughly assess the impact of changes on existing systems and business processes. Stakeholder feedback, while valuable, can sometimes be vague or incomplete, necessitating a structured approach to elicit precise information and understand potential ramifications. The correct approach emphasizes a proactive and systematic impact assessment. This involves engaging directly with affected stakeholders to gather detailed requirements and understand how the proposed changes to CognosBI will affect their daily operations, data integrity, reporting accuracy, and downstream systems. Documenting these impacts and obtaining formal sign-off ensures accountability and provides a clear baseline for managing expectations and potential risks. This aligns with best practices in project management and the implicit regulatory expectation of due diligence in implementing technology solutions that could affect business operations and data governance. Incorrect approaches fail to meet these standards. One incorrect approach might involve proceeding with the changes based on a superficial understanding of the feedback, without a formal impact assessment. This poses a significant regulatory risk, as it could lead to unintended consequences such as data corruption, reporting errors, or system downtime, all of which could violate data governance policies or operational compliance requirements. Another incorrect approach might be to delegate the impact assessment entirely to a technical team without sufficient business context or stakeholder engagement. This risks overlooking critical business process impacts or failing to capture the nuances of user requirements, leading to a solution that is technically sound but operationally ineffective or non-compliant. A third incorrect approach could be to dismiss stakeholder feedback as merely noise and proceed without proper investigation. This demonstrates a disregard for stakeholder input, which is a fundamental ethical failure in project management and can lead to significant user dissatisfaction and operational disruptions, potentially impacting compliance with service-level agreements or internal control frameworks. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that prioritizes clear communication, thorough documentation, and risk mitigation. When faced with stakeholder feedback, the first step is to categorize and clarify the feedback. This is followed by a formal impact assessment process, which should involve cross-functional teams and direct stakeholder engagement. The results of the assessment should inform project planning, resource allocation, and risk management strategies. Continuous communication and validation with stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle are crucial to ensure alignment and manage expectations effectively. Question 20. Strategic planning requires a robust approach to data governance within IBM CognosBI to ensure compliance with financial industry regulations. Considering the sensitive nature of customer financial data, which of the following strategies best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for data access and security? Option A. Grant all users within the finance department broad access to all financial reports and underlying data to facilitate quick analysis and decision-making, assuming departmental roles imply a legitimate need. Option B. Implement a comprehensive data governance framework that includes data classification, role-based access controls within CognosBI, and regular auditing of access logs to enforce the principle of least privilege and ensure accountability. Option C. Develop custom scripts to bypass standard CognosBI security and audit features for specific high-priority reports, with a plan to address compliance issues post-deployment. Option D. Prioritize the technical features of IBM CognosBI for report creation and performance optimization, assuming that the tool's inherent capabilities will adequately address data security and privacy concerns. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive data governance framework that includes data classification, role-based access controls within CognosBI, and regular auditing of access logs to enforce the principle of least privilege and ensure accountability. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing data governance and access within a regulated financial services environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for robust business intelligence and reporting via IBM CognosBI with the stringent requirements of data privacy and security mandated by financial regulations. Specifically, the challenge is to ensure that sensitive customer financial data is accessed and utilized appropriately, preventing unauthorized disclosure or misuse, while still enabling legitimate business functions. This requires a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of CognosBI and the legal and ethical obligations governing financial data. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a comprehensive data governance framework that aligns with regulatory requirements. This includes establishing clear data classification policies, role-based access controls (RBAC) within CognosBI, and robust auditing mechanisms. By classifying data based on sensitivity e.g., PI financial transaction details, organizations can apply granular permissions, ensuring that only authorized personnel with a legitimate business need can access specific datasets or reports. RBAC is crucial for enforcing the principle of least privilege, minimizing the risk of data breaches. Furthermore, regular auditing of access logs provides a traceable record of who accessed what data, when, and why, which is essential for compliance and incident response. This approach directly addresses regulatory mandates for data protection and accountability, representing best professional practice by proactively mitigating risks and ensuring adherence to legal obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting broad access to all users based on departmental roles without granular data classification or specific access justifications is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach violates principles of data minimization and the right to privacy, potentially exposing sensitive customer information to individuals who do not have a legitimate business need to access it. It creates a high risk of unauthorized disclosure and noncompliance with data protection regulations. Implementing a solution that bypasses standard security protocols or audit trails to expedite report generation, even with the intention of later remediation, is also a critical failure. This directly contravenes regulatory requirements for data integrity, security, and auditability. Such actions undermine the trustworthiness of the BI system and expose the organization to severe penalties for noncompliance and potential data breaches. It demonstrates a disregard for established governance processes and regulatory oversight. Focusing solely on the technical capabilities of IBM CognosBI for reporting without considering the underlying data governance and regulatory compliance aspects is another failure. While CognosBI is a powerful tool, its effective and compliant use is dependent on the organizational policies and controls surrounding the data it accesses. Neglecting these aspects means the tool could be used in a manner that is non-compliant, leading to regulatory violations and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this domain must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape, e.g., data privacy laws, financial industry regulations. This understanding should then inform the design and implementation of data governance policies and technical controls within the BI environment. A structured approach involving data classification, RBAC, regular security assessments, and continuous monitoring is essential. Professionals should always prioritize adherence to regulations and ethical principles over expediency, ensuring that all actions taken with sensitive data are justifiable, secure, and auditable. When in doubt, seeking guidance from legal and compliance departments is paramount.